Is everybody here? Is anybody present? It's your boy MagMongoSlade. It is our bric-a-brac pop culture stream for what's today's date? Sunday, December the 18th, 2022. Welcome. What's up, WG Phil? RAS. RAS is finally early. I appreciate that. So today you might actually use the camera today, because I do want to talk about a couple of manga. We'll talk about From the Red Fog, and I want to talk about Momo the Blood Taker. The major works I want to talk about today are going to be, I'm on episode 286 of Bleach. 286, episode 286, whatever that is. So where else will we be? What's up, everybody? I brought my train of thought. Oh yeah, Batman Spawn. I would, if we got time, we'll get into that. If not, I'll just give you a short version of what's going on there. But our main thing that we're going to talk about today is definitely going to be Megamind, the animated movie that nobody told me about, that I had to find on my own. I'll tell the story of how I came across it, what I thought of the movie, and then we'll do our David Mamet questions. And then, because I watched that, I decided I had to do something to make it a theme. So I watched Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2, which I had never seen before. And so now we're going to talk about evil geniuses. So, and why is the genius always evil? I'm kind of going to throw some ideas around there. The question came actually from Neil deGrasse Tyson when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. He basically had the question of, why are the scientists always the bad guys? Shouldn't they be the good guys? And I was just kind of like, well, depends. Yeah, I have never seen Megamind until, 3 days ago? 4 days ago, maybe? I had never seen Sonic until yesterday. So I watched Sonic 1 and 2 yesterday. So the pop culture stream actually pushes me to watch things that I probably wouldn't watch. And I'll get around to things eventually. But we'll get to that stuff later. First, after I say my hellos to everybody. And we'll get into Megamind first. So Megamind is, how I found out about it is I was out going to I went to Wally World, what I call Walmart, and I was looking for a movie for my dad. My dad still collects DVDs, and I was going to get a movie for him. And he buys shit off Amazon, so it's hard to pick a movie for a guy who just buys whatever he sees on Amazon. So I was flicking through the $5 movie section, and I came across Megamind, and I looked at the back of it, and I was like, I'd never heard of this before, so, and I was like, okay, well, let's take a look. I didn't buy the movie, obviously. I just went home and found a stream of it. So I really enjoyed it, believe it or not. I tend to avoid children's movies, but at the same time, I watch a lot of children's movies. So, Megamind, for those of you who have not seen it, I'm pretty sure most of you have. I think this movie is 10 years old. So, I would have been in my mid-20s when it came out. I know some of you are probably a little bit younger than me. You might have seen it when you were a kid. But the movie is subversive. It's subversive in a good way. Subverting tropes usually really pisses me off, and I thought that's what we were going to do here. Is I was going to get really mad and start yelling about subversive tropes in movies. But Megamind actually subverted the trope, actually came back on the other end and made good on it. So the trope is, of course, Superman, right? As usual, we get another Superman analog with the Metro Man. And Megamind is positioned as being sort of the absolute opposite of Superman. He's a super genius who came from a dying planet, but everything went wrong as soon as he got to Earth. He was raised in a prison. He was shunned by everybody. All of his, childhood friends, they preferred to hang out with Metro Man. And he is sort of always left to alone, isolated. And he starts to define himself by his relationship to Metro Man. So he became the villain because he couldn't become the hero. And in the story, he ends up the hero on the other end. I mean, I think the movie is 10 years old, so who cares about spoilers, right? The three main things of the movie: Metro Man is the hero, Megamind is the villain. Second point, Megamind, quote unquote, kills Metro Man, and therefore has to now define himself without his hero. So he seeks out to create a new hero. And the third point is, in creating a new hero, he becomes a hero himself, as the hero he tried to make ended up becoming corrupted. It was absolutely tremendous. And I thought that it was really good in subverting the trope of Superman with Metro Man and him being a selfish asshole. But at the same time, you got to see that Megamind is generally a good dude. Generally he's a good guy. And I liked it. I really liked it. So in doing my review of it, I wrote down some things, because these are things I really wanted to discuss. Is essentially they did everything Superman, as clearly as I can understand it. Roxanne, the intrepid female reporter, is essentially Lois Lane. She's also the object of many kidnappings. There's actually a running trope in the movie that she always gets kidnapped, and everyone thinks that she's Metro Man's girlfriend because he always has to save her. And that's the situation that they set up with Hal, the weird camera guy who's kind of shy and kind of dorky, and he actually likes Roxanne. And he has trouble, being confident and coming across and saying how he really feels to Roxanne. And when he finally does, of course, he gets put in the friend zone. Of course, he is supposed to be the Jimmy Olsen character. Unfortunately, we know that Jimmy Olsen, I don't think, maybe in some version of Superman that I haven't read, Jimmy Olsen tries to hook up with Lois Lane, but usually that's not really. He's Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, not guy jealous of Superman, Jimmy Olsen. Metro Man is sort of cocky, but he's a good guy generally speaking, until we see him a little bit later when, he's a giant Elvis impersonator though. Like, he looks a lot like somebody, like the Honky Tonk Man, and it's fucking hilarious. Like, the way the character is even drawn is pretty funny. So that's the setup. Is an interesting joint. So we get the opposition of both Metro Man and Megamind, both being aliens. But Metro Man was raised by a rich family, and Megamind was raised in a prison. You also have that position of Megamind being sort of a freak. He looks like an alien, while Metro Man doesn't look like an alien. He looks just like all the other humans. So it's easier for them to accept him because he looks like them. And that's one of the things that is a running theme throughout the movie, is when Megamind tries to woo Roxanne, he has to take a human form, right? So, of course, this is a play on racism. They can't get over it. So, this is their dialogue on racism, but it's not, Megamind is evil because the humans hate people who don't look like them. It is, the humans just would rather not deal with the blue guy with the gigantic head. They would rather not deal with that guy. They would rather deal with, and Metro Man is generally cool. He has superpowers, and Megamind is a bit of an elitist. He's a bit of a know-it-all. He doesn't really, he doesn't exactly, what I'm thinking of, ingratiate himself to the masses. But that's how they're setting up. And that's generally a good way of writing. I know Ali Hankerson is around here. That's a good way to write things, is that the villain typically looks different than everyone else. The villain is often ugly, deformed in a way. So you'll get villains who have freakish looks, or they just flat out be monsters. And the heroes will be generally traditionally handsome guys and with superpowers who are cool, and the girls like them. That's generally how it is. So that's most of the first arc of the movie is setting up the differences between Metro Man and Megamind. And in one of their most recent battles, Megamind actually destroys Metro Man. It's completely by accident. So it wasn't like he was intending to kill Metro Man. He just did it. And then we get into the second part of the movie, which is that Megamind has defeated his villain, well, his hero rather, and he's conquered the city, and he has unlimited freedom, you know. So in unlimited freedom, he's robbing banks, generally being very chaotic. He can do whatever he wants, but that freedom creates boredom. He gets bored. You know, there's nobody to oppose him now. He has nothing. He has no real personality either, because he's only been defined by Metro Man. He never had to do anything for himself. So then he starts to feel some guilt for killing, Metro Man. He even goes to the Metro Man statue and sort of apologizes for killing him. And he doesn't know what to do with himself, but he still sees himself as the villain. So he decides his new mission is to create another hero using Metro Man's DNA. So he decides he's going to do that. Now at this point, we are steeped into Roxanne and Hal, and Hal is continuously not Hal. I'm sorry. No, Hal. Yeah, right. Hal is the guy I'm talking about. Okay, I had it right the first time. Hal is trying to woo Roxanne. He's trying to ask her out on dates, but he's all fat and weird, and he doesn't know what to do. Megamind rather puts all this effort into creating a clone of Metro Man using his DNA. He's looking for the perfect person to shoot with this DNA gun that's going to give them Metro Man's powers, and he's actually planning to train a hero, to teach somebody how to be a hero to oppose him, so he'll have something to do. And life won't be so boring. But during this time, he's also took up the form of Bernard. Bernard is he's a guy who kind of works at I don't know if it's a museum. I think it was a museum or a statue or something like that. And the guy who works there, he takes this guy's face or whatever, essentially. And he starts building a relationship with Roxanne using this guy's face, this Bernard personality. And him and Roxanne become really close, and they become friends, and even, start to go out on dates and stuff like that. And at this point, Hal is getting jealous. Hal has liked Roxanne forever. And an accident occurs in which Megamind shoots Hal with the DNA gun, giving Hal Metro Man's powers. At that point, Megamind starts to train Hal into how to be a hero. And Megamind has this assistant, I think it's called Minion. And Minion is the one who's teaching Titan, which is his name, the new guy, Hal. He's teaching him that, hey, Roxanne will love you if you are the hero. If you become the hero that she loves, or the hero that she likes, she'll come to love you. And so that motivates Hal to want to be a hero, or to be heroic. So then that takes us into the third arc of the movie, where now Hal has trained a little bit in how to be a hero, and he's getting cocky. He thinks that just because he's got big muscles and he's got powers, that Roxanne will love him. But she doesn't. She shuts him down, and that makes him very, very jealous. Roxanne ends up kissing Bernard, finds out Bernard is Megamind. She's embarrassed, humiliated, of course, dumps him. He's been lying to her. So she basically by herself now, the camera guy who was her friend has a crush on her and is becoming obsessive. But the guy that she really likes is really a villain in disguise. This brings us to Megamind and Minion getting into it. They have their issues a little bit later. And this takes us into like near the long stretch of the end, where Megamind starts having these confrontations with Titan, because he decided that Titan decides he wants to team up with Megamind. He doesn't want to be a hero anymore, because being a hero, for what? Roxanne wouldn't love him even if he was a hero, so he decided he was going to be a villain. He's going to accept villainy. And Megamind refused to participate with this. He was like, no. He wants a hero to fight. That's what he wants. He doesn't want a partner. He wants a hero to fight. So he tells Titan, I was Bernard. I was the guy she was kissing. I was her boyfriend. That pisses Titan off, and he tries to kill Megamind, which is great. Like, it's so petty. But when you think about it, Titan is a beta male with powers. That's generally the concept that you're getting here, is that Titan is a beta male with powers. No matter what you do with a beta male, he's still a beta male, right? If you give a weak man power, he's still weak. He has no experience with power, so he becomes a bully, and so that's what Titan becomes. He tries to bully Roxanne into loving him. It doesn't work. Then he tries to bully Megamind because Roxanne liked him and not Titan himself. That doesn't work. Titan becomes a full-fledged villain at this point, and Megamind is the only one who can stop him. In trying to find a way to stop Titan, Megamind and Roxanne become close again. He's the only one who can help. She talks him into basically turning himself into a hero, but that's a slow process. Together, they find out that Metro Man is still alive, and that, he was tired of being a hero. He had also been defined by forces not chosen by himself. He was now being defined by the citizens. The citizens always looked to him to help them. And he felt like he never had a choice to be a hero. He did not choose to be a hero. But Megamind could make that choice. And he sort of gives Megamind his blessing by saying, this is your calling. It's not mine. This is what you were meant to do. I'm meant to play the guitar. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's a selfish fucking prick. Like, selfish prick Superman. So, it's ridiculous. But Roxanne starts to buy into Megamind's tenacity. That he was a guy that no matter how many times Metro Man beat him up, he never stopped coming back. So why would he stop now? Even Titan has the same powers as Metro Man. Why would you turn away from the challenge now when you've been fighting this guy for years already anyway? So Megamind uses his brain. He can't physically beat up Titan. He figures that part out pretty quickly. But he knows that Titan is scared of, and just like everybody else, sees that Metro Man is a hero. So he utilizes his ability to pretend to be other people, to pretend to be Metro Man. So he pops up on Titan as Metro Man, and Titan is so scared, because again, he's a beta male with powers. He's so scared that he doesn't really even want to fight Metro Man. He's like, oh no. Metro Man says, get out of here. Don't you ever come back. And so Titan's like, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir, and flies off. Of course, it doesn't end that way, because that would have been a little too cheap. Titan eventually figures out that it's not the real Metro Man, and he comes back. And at this point, we see that Megamind has now been exposed as being the guy who saved the city from Titan. This was Roxanne's doing. She purposely exposed him to everybody to let them know that he's not that bad of a guy. And it was to restore faith from the citizens. The citizens had lost faith with now Titan is running around doing whatever he wants. And so at this point, Megamind finds a way of stealing Titan's powers and ends up saving the day. It was excellent. All right. It was very well done. It was very subversive, but it was very well done. I really, really enjoyed Megamind. And I enjoyed it far more than I thought I would. All right, so let's go through the comment section and see what people think of Megamind. It said Megamind was slept on due to DreamWorks releasing Shrek 4 and How to Train Your Dragon and Despicable Me. 2010 was a good year for animated movies. I've never seen any of those. I've never seen any of Shrek movies. I'm not interested in them. How to Train Your Dragon, I've never seen those. And Despicable Me, those little yellow things are very, very, very annoying. So I don't be bothered with that. I guess y'all like Despicable Me because they'll say that Despicable Me, Megamind is equal. Darren Gordon-Hill, most cultures prefer their own. Yeah. I mean, all cultures prefer their own. It's only been recent years or late years in empires and stuff like that where you get people who prefer other cultures to their own. And it's usually the elite class who think that other cultures do things better. In the United States, it would be the liberal leftist class. They think everything European is better. And I'm pretty sure the Europeans, I don't know what Europeans think is better because I've never been in Europe. But every time you talk to a leftist, it's like they're, talking about how great the Canadian system is, or how Sweden does this, or how the Netherlands do that, and, education system over here. And it's like, wow, everybody except your own, huh? But that's how cultures are. Cultures have always been insular like that. People believe that it's racism, but the odd man out, regardless of how he looks or regardless of the reason, is always going to be shunned. If you remember in the 300 movie, and I have the comic book too, the deformed Spartan, he's rejected because he's deformed. But they give you a good reason why he's rejected, not just because he's ugly, but because he's of no use to their society. He can't really perform and participate in a warrior society because of his deformation. But a lot of societies are that way. The people who look differently, they're the outcasts. And sometimes it's usually wrong. Sometimes people who look different can add incredible things to your society. But most of the time, the people who are the outcasts are an outcast for a reason. Usually it's ideological reasons. Not just that they look different, because they also have different ideas. So generally speaking, that's it. When you have, it's not just that we don't like brown people, which makes no sense. Everybody likes brown people who look and think like they do. Every fucking racist in the United States loves black people who think that they're the same way that they do, or or root for the same team. Like, you look at the great reasons why people are brought together. A lot of it was music. A lot of it was sports. Politically, they may not want their children to go to the same school as a black person, but they couldn't help but listening to that Negro music. They loved them Negro sports athletes. So they will always say there's good ones, And for black people, it's the same way. We don't like white people, but, this is one of the good ones. Bill Clinton was one of the good ones. Eminem was one of the good ones. You would get those kinds of white people that were accepted in black society for whatever reason. Just some reason or another. Abraham Lincoln was another one. So it's not completely out of the ordinary for people who look differently to be considered the outcast and to be considered the villain. And usually the person who looks differently has to prove himself. He has to prove that he is a member and a part of our society. And that's what Megamind was about. Megamind had to prove that he was part of this city. He always lived so detached from everybody else. He had no relationships. He had no friends. He had nothing. And part of it was the rejection, but part of it was his lack of confidence to actually approach anybody and actually let them know him. Like, that's part of what him and Roxanne, their relationship was about. was he actually let his guard down and was, being very vulnerable and telling her about his life and how tough things have been for him. He was, of course, doing it in a smart way, and he was doing it in a very duplicitous way by not telling the truth. He wasn't using his real face. But it wasn't until somebody saw the inside of him that she actually came to love him, and then figured everybody else would too. That's why she exposed him to everybody else. So that's an interesting thing. What's up? ILR the Sandman. Come on, you gotta get a better name than this. Alto Johnson. This was 2010, the pre-woke era, right? Well, here's the thing. Yes, but there's a lot of wokeness in this. This movie, if it was released today, wouldn't be woke enough nearly. But there was still some wokeness in this movie. Like I just said, the Megamind thing was about racism. People didn't want to deal with him because he was an ugly freak. He looked different than everybody else. It was, generally speaking, the idea that criminals aren't criminals by choice. They're made criminals by the environment. In other words, because everybody liked Metro Man, they couldn't like him too. They couldn't like both of them. They had to make a decision. They could only like one. And since the society picked Metro Man, well, that just left Megamind to be the villain. Wasn't really the case. The subversion of Superman, like I just said earlier, was another one. So this movie isn't woke in a terminal sense like a lot of the stuff today, but it had a lot of the same tropes that wokeness is better written than most woke movies today, because it took the piss out of Superman. It took the piss out of Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane and all that stuff, but it didn't humiliate anybody. You didn't walk away with this thing thinking anybody except Titan was an absolute piece of shit. Metro Man was the shits for faking his death, but at the same time, it was very well explained, and you actually learned that in watching it, rather, I got the sense that Peter Parker could probably have that same conversation. The Parker luck, or the Parker curse, when Uncle Ben told him with great power comes great responsibility, and now Peter is sacrificing literally everything. He's sacrificing every relationship that he's ever been in to be Spider-Man. And at some point, he never has that realization what enough is enough. And we never ask heroes if we're asking too much. He's, how many girlfriends he had? Gwen Stacy die right in front of him. That would have been enough to break anybody. But we think that the hero should push through it. We don't think heroes get bored. We don't think heroes get tired. We don't think they get sick. So it's a statement more on that. That, yeah, I can say that Metro Man is selfish as fuck, and I did. But at the same time, you can sympathize with him. If you've ever been in a situation where you've been responsible for people, and they take advantage of that, oh God. You ever been responsible for like a child or an elderly person, and you just get tired of it, no matter how much you love them. No matter how much you like them, you get tired of taking care of them all day. You just get tired of being at their beck and call all day. You get tired of the baby crying. You get tired of mama needing help do this or needing help do that. It's natural. Of course you're going to get tired. That's why we call them superheroes, because they're superhuman. They think beyond us. They don't get tired. Nobody's going to write a story where Superman's just, God, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I got to go stop a mugging. Like, yeah, that would be very realistic, but it wouldn't be very Superman. He wouldn't care what time it is. Hell, Superman doesn't even need to sleep. He's solar powered. He doesn't need to sleep. So it's one of those interesting little things there where it is subversive, but at the same time, it's something that if Metro Man were a human being, you would understand it. That he never chose to be a hero. It was kind of thrust upon him. It was expected of him. And he took up the job because he liked the attention. And he generally did like helping people, but it wasn't for him. It wasn't for me. But he noted that, yeah, maybe it is for you. Maybe it's for Megamind to do. Maybe it's your calling. So even though it's pre-woke, it has a lot of woke elements in it, but not enough for you to be like, ugh, this movie sucks. Darren Gordon-Hill says, if you kill Black Panther, there's no movie. Well, depends on... That's why the movie wasn't called Black Panther. It was called Wakanda Forever! And then they made a new Black Panther. I generally don't like the idea of killing heroes. It's a gamble every single time. I think in this movie they did a good job because the movie was about the villain. It wasn't about the hero. The hero was just there to define the villain, and he had to get moved out of the way so the villain can find the good in himself. But generally speaking, in stuff like Death Note, killing the hero, ooh boy, that's a mistake. Oh, that's a mistake. Darren Gordon-Hill says criminals make the best cops and vice versa. Well, there's a good argument to be made about that. You know, my cousin once told me that only two kinds of people are even paying attention out there on the street. Criminals and cops. Everybody else is just going about their day. But police and criminals pay attention to everything. And I remember, because he was talking about how long a car sits outside or across the street or whatever. That car been sitting out there for 4 hours or whatever. And I'm like, why do you even care about that? And he was like, man, only two kinds of people would pay attention to something like that. Criminals and cops. And I asked him, when did he join the police force? And he just kind of laughed, and I knew the answer to that question right there. But it's, generally speaking, it's true. You know, most people are not that observant. They don't pay attention to the world around them. They're texting and they got their headphones in, earbuds in, or whatever. But criminals are always looking out. They're always looking out for other criminals. They're always looking out for the cops. And the cops are always looking out for criminals. So they're always paying more attention, for sure. It says girls like bad boys. That's true, but Megamind wasn't really a bad boy. He was kind of positioned to be that way. And he played that role because that's what Megamind, Metro Man, and the citizens had pushed him to being. But she didn't like him for the bad things that he did. She liked him for the good things that he did. And to be quite honest, what women like is, you know, what they call taming the beast. They want him to be a bad guy, but bad towards everybody except her, generally speaking. Vegeta Lover 92. What do you think about Keaton in the Flash trailer? Well, I didn't see the Flash trailer. I'm not looking at Flash. I'm not looking at anything Flash as long as that weirdo is part of it. I'm glad that you liked Megamind. Despicable Me, I don't know. Should I watch it? I watched Kung Fu Panda too, and I hated it. I hated that shit. You should watch How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. Maybe I'll look into it. Here's the thing. Megamind is getting a show on Peacock next year. Oh, that ought to be interesting. WG Phil says Megamind was raised in prison, so it's a nature versus nurture issue. Yeah, that's one of the many questions there. You know, is he evil by nature or was he made that way? And the movie goes into basically that he was raised that way. He was raised in a prison. So it goes to the whole school to prison pipeline idea that if that guy was raised in prison, so obviously he's going to be a bad guy, right? Not necessarily true. He still had to make the decisions to be a bad guy. Each time that he's tried to kidnap Roxanne or destroy the city or whatever, that was a choice that he made. It had nothing to do with him being raised in prison. Because as a rational human being, he can make his own decisions, right? The early 2010s had some of the last great movies. I think I can agree with that. And Darren Gordon-Hill is correct. He believed himself a villain by destiny, so he played the role. So too Metro Man, but the opposite. Correct. And then when Metro Man decided he could change his fate, Megamind decided, well, shit, maybe I can change mine too. You know, it's a simple process, you know. Somebody has to break the cycle, you know. And it seems almost like Metro Man saved Megamind in this movie by giving him his blessing and saying maybe this is your calling. It denigrated himself, but in an interesting heroic fashion, it actually gave the nod to Megamind to try his hand at heroism. Alto Johnson says, how come there's no more foreign villains who have diplomatic immunity? I don't know, man, but it's a little weird that we have all of these. We still have foreign villains. We just look at other people as foreign villains. You know, I give you a really good example. Sonic. That's why I watched Sonic, because I knew who the villain was when I watched Sonic, because I played the video games. So I knew who the villain was going to be, and the villain was going to be Dr. Robotnik. And I was interested in this flick generally because I had never seen it, and I had a couple of hours to burn, and I wasn't really all that interested in Bleach or Ben 10, so I just started looking for other things to watch. And so I enjoyed Megamind so much, and I needed something else to continue on with that sort of streak of how can I make this a central topic. And my central topic was going to be evil villains, and I say, okay, well, evil geniuses, which brings us to Dr. Robotnik. So I'm going to talk about Sonic 1, then we're going to go back through some of the David Mamet questions of these movies. So Sonic 1, if you ever played the video games, you know how much of a departure the Sonic the Hedgehog movies are from the video games. For starters, it's an isekai, meaning that it's one character being sent from one world to another. So you have Sonic being sent from his world to the human world. And all the little Sonic the Hedgehog character traits that we've known in the United States for years, they explain in this movie why he loves chili dogs, which came from the Fox cartoon, why he wears red shoes, his hyperactive, hyperverbal personality. I honestly, it took me forever to realize that he was supposed to be a kid in this movie. Like, I was thinking, like, why is Sonic so childish? But it's because he's a kid. And I was just kind of like, I thought it was just his personality. I didn't know he was literally supposed to be a kid until later in the movie. But the movie is secret because it's another movie where the hero, this time a traditional hero, and Sonic, he's very awkward. He's different. He looks different than everybody else. And that's the beginning of the movie. The beginning of the movie is Sonic is a stranger in a strange land, but he's been on Earth so long now that he actually is used to some of the customs. But he doesn't feel comfortable actually meeting anybody. So he lives his life in the shadows. Much like Megamind did, right? Megamind lived his life in the shadows. But Sonic lived his life in a cave. You know, he ran around learning how to play baseball and watching movies through other people's windows and different things like that. And you generally got a sense that, yeah, he is sad as hell. You know, he literally has nobody else. There's nobody else like him on the planet. And he can't relate. Nobody can relate to him. Oddly enough, he becomes infatuated with some guy named Tom, just like regular guy Tom. I don't know, like, what that was one of my things about this movie. Like, what was it about Tom specifically that Sonic liked so much? Of course, we figure out later that, you know, what about Tom is so special, but they didn't tell you, like, what was so special about Tom. That he actually likes Tom. You know, he likes Tom's family, you know, Tom's wife or whatever, and he hangs out with them without them knowing. So, but Sonic is fleeing from his world because people want to use his power, steal his powers or whatever. And he gets so lonely that he freaks out on the baseball diamond. He knocks out the power grid. And when that happens, the United States government, who are now our foreign enemies, they decide to get involved. And they call in Dr. Robotnik, who is played by Jim Carrey. And Jim Carrey is absolutely phenomenal in this role. He's a human cartoon character. I've always said that about Jim Carrey. He is a literally human cartoon character. Every time he plays anything, it has such vibrant life to it. Like Ace Ventura, The Mask, Liar Liar, all of his movies. I love everything Jim Carrey does. And he was tremendous in this too. Because Dr. Robotnik comes into the scene and he's our evil genius here, right? And his intelligence is set up pretty quickly because he actually finds Sonic pretty fast. because he's not a fool, right? But he even has like this assistant, that the assistant's only purpose in the movies is to be belittled by Dr. Robotnik. Because he has to have somebody to be better than, right? He can't be better than Sonic. He has to be better than somebody, so he's going to be better than this random Arab assistant that he has. Very random. But that takes us to the movie, because now it's a sort of a chase movie. Sonic drops his rings, which he uses to teleport through worlds. He ends up dropping them in San Francisco, which is where Tom is going to move to. He's leaving the little small town of, what is it, Green Hills, Montana, for the big city, San Francisco. So he loses his rings, and Tom has to take him to San Francisco, because Sonic, despite the fact that he's super fast, he doesn't have a sense of direction. He doesn't know where San Francisco is. Now, of course, that's a plot hole, because Sonic could have just run around the country and found San Francisco pretty goddamn fast. You know, it wouldn't have been that much of a problem for him to find San Francisco. But he still has to find a specific building in San Francisco. So he needs Tom for something. And I really didn't have it until movie 2, that a sense that we were falling into Transformers issues where the human characters were getting on my nerves. Like, not in this one. In the second one, there was far too much human characters. I hate it so much. God. But you got to have human characters, right? So I guess you do. So we begin our chase, where Sonic is in a car and he's learning about human life, and he's learning how to dance and all this kind of stuff. He's bonding with Tom as him and Tom go on this road trip. So it's like a buddy cop show, you know. They do a really good job of establishing Sonic's speed. You know, it's much like those scenes from Quicksilver and X-Men, where he moves so fast, everybody else is moving slow, and he can just move bullets around. And, you know, he gave a guy a wedgie in a bar, and it was pretty funny. So that's kind of where everything goes. Robotnik is able to chase them because he managed to get one of Sonic's quills. So he has that, and he uses it, and it's another ingenious thing. He uses it to power some of his machines. You know, because Sonic is essentially a living generator in these movies, right? He just has these, you know, he generates electricity. He literally moves at the speed of light, as Ali Hankerson said. So that's the bulk of the movie, is the chase from Green Hills, Montana to San Francisco. Sonic ends up finding his rings on the rooftop in San Francisco. That's when Robotnik finally catches up with them. The fight scene between Sonic and Robotnik is very, very fun, as his airship is powered by one of Sonic's quills, so he's actually able to keep up with them to a degree. He's not as fast as Sonic, but he's on Sonic's tail in this airplane. And they're zipping across the planet. They're on like the Great Wall of China, in order to give you that video game vibe where Sonic, you go to the bonus sections of Sonic, and, you know, he's running through those tunnels or whatever. That's generally the idea that you're supposed to get about Sonic running across the Great Wall of China. And the end of the movie sees, you know, Sonic finally kind of burn out, and Robotnik thinks he's got him beat. Tom stands up for Sonic, you know, and they show the power of friendship, of course. Sonic revives. They use one of the rings to push Robotnik into the mushroom world, which is where Sonic was supposed to go. Once he was going to escape the Earth, he was going to go to Mushroom World. And at first, I was kind of like, wait a minute. Because I remember somebody saying to me before that before I hadn't even saw this movie. And they were like, oh yeah, remember Sonic is supposed to go to the Mushroom, and he used Mushroom Kingdom. I was like, Mushroom Kingdom? And they were like, yeah, Sonic was trying to escape and go to the Mushroom Kingdom. And then, of course, you see like the Mario movie's about to come out. Like, is they about to do like this Avengers thing with like the Nintendo properties where
Sonic is going to go to the Mushroom World and Mario is going to be there. And then I see the movie. I'm like, no, it's not the same thing. It's not even being made by the same people, I don't think. The Mario movie comes out in April. And it's like completely 100% animated with no human characters, which is great. You know, I wish the Sonic movie had no human characters. But the end of the movie, Sonic is living in Tom's attic, and Robotnik has built a machine to attempt to escape. But it's incredibly fun. It's an incredibly fun movie. It's very simple. It really showcases Sonic as a character. It feels natural. Like, it feels like the Sonic character I grew up with. So it's fun. It even has all of the little Sonic character traits, like the foot tap, like at a certain part when he's on the rooftop and the rockets are coming at him. He kind of looks at his watch and he's tapping his foot, which, you know, he comes from the game or whatever. It was very well done. I think Sonic 1 was tremendous. It was really good. And Dr. Robotnik really made that movie. He was really good in that. Jim Carrey was tremendous. Now, Sonic 2 was a little bit more confusing. Because it tries to... what the hell? What? Okay, what it tries to do is bring in other characters. Like, it tries to make Tails and Knuckles a thing. Now, of course, Tails and Knuckles have been around forever, especially Tails has been around forever. But, you know, now they have to find a way to make those characters matter and make sense in this new world that they've created. And I think they did a good job. You know, Knuckles finds Dr. Robotnik in the Mushroom World, and they team up to get the Master Emerald, which is on Earth. And then we find out that's why Sonic is sent to Earth. He was sent to Earth to retrieve this Master Emerald. Tails came to Earth to help Sonic. Well, to inform Sonic. And Tom is there. And they have this nice little conversation on the boat where Sonic wants to be a superhero. He's out fighting crime in Seattle, of all places. But he's being irresponsible. He doesn't know how to use his powers. He's destroying stuff. He's wrecking stuff. And he really wants to be a hero. And Tom is telling them, like, look, you need to learn about some responsibility. You know, this is where, if I hadn't watched these movies back to back, I would really be complaining a lot more about Tom and the human characters in this movie. In these movies, I should say. But Tom really did a great job on this boat scene of being a father figure to Sonic. And even when Sonic was being sort of a bratty kid saying, "You're not my dad," Tom just kind of was like, whatever. But, you know, being a hero means taking responsibility for other people. And you don't go looking for those moments. Those moments come and find you. And you see throughout the movie that Sonic is very childlike. He's very irresponsible. Tom leaves to go to a wedding. Sonic completely ruins his house. You know, starts having bubble baths in the living room. And, you know, they do the old, what was that movie? What was it, Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Where he's sliding across the floor and everything. But it was good because Sonic's character development was useful because he has to be a big brother to Tails. You know, Tails is good with computers and everything, but he's, generally speaking, a coward. He has no confidence. And he looks up to Sonic. So Sonic has to be more responsible because Tails looks up to him. And I think they kind of nailed that relationship a little bit. I liked it. I thought it was very well done. That's always the sense that I got from Sonic and Tails, is that Tails always looked up to him. You know, always like a big brother. The Robotnik Knuckles partnership, I liked that too. I thought it was fun, specifically the part of the movie where Knuckles is reading the text messages and he's reading the dots, dot, dot, dot. I thought that was very funny. I like the little fish out of water moments like that. So we ends up getting this long stretch of thing that involves Tom's wife's sister and the government, and I'm telling you, bro, I got glassy eyed at that point. I was like, this please end, because I knew she was gonna get the guy anyway, and I was just kind of like, please end this. So they went through this whole thing with the wedding and all that shit. It was awful. It was risky business. There we go. Risky business. I knew it was something like that. Anyway, the Sonic and Knuckles fight scene was fun. Showed that you could actually do like a Dragon Ball type fight scene in one of these movies. You have to take the time and effort to do it, but they're fighting at really fast speeds, and it's really fun. Of course, Robotnik betrays Knuckles and steals the emerald from him. And Robotnik is gone after the with the Chaos Emerald, or with the Master Emerald as they called it. Dr. Robotnik is just out of control. He builds this giant robot, which is absolutely fantastic. It's a beautiful looking machine. And he's going on a rampage to destroy Sonic or whatever. Knuckles ends up punching the emerald out of Robotnik, and Sonic ends up getting it, which of course give us a Go Sonic moment. And we learn that Sonic is a lot more responsible now that he has the emerald, because he has like infinite power now. And he's a lot more careful. You know, he in doing battle with Robotnik, he doesn't really damage anything other than Robotnik. So you see how it is from earlier when he had just his base power and he's wrecking everything because he's playful and, you know, he's playing around. But now he's got all of this power. He's a little bit more humble. He's a little bit more sedated, you know. And he defeats Dr. Robotnik, of course. They couldn't help themselves. They had Dr. Robotnik start talking about there's good people on both sides, which of course is a Trump quote. Even when it doesn't make sense, like Trump is the all evil, right? It doesn't even make sense for Dr. Robotnik, who is a character that is nothing like Trump, you know, to make a statement like that. But whatever. Anyway, Sonic ends up giving up the power because he doesn't really want it. And he even says himself that he still has a lot of growing up to do. And he doesn't think that he should have that kind of power. So Knuckles, Tails, and Sonic decided to make a vow to protect the Emerald. And at the end of the movie, we see that Shadow is about to make an appearance. So they will be making a Sonic 3, apparently. So the second movie was okay. Not as good as the first one. Too much of the human characters, I think. But Knuckles is fun. Tails is okay, but Knuckles is very fun in this movie. He's a stick in the mud, based on the warrior archetype, you know, where we shook on it, therefore we're brethren or whatever, you know, warbound and that kind of thing. But at the same time, you got Dr. Robotnik, who is duplicitous, cares about nothing more than power and infinite power, infinite knowledge, that sort of thing. So I really enjoyed the Sonic movies too. Even though I like the first one a lot better. Let's see what you guys think of the Sonic films before we go forward. Alto Johnson says, the reasons I hate the Michael Bay Transformer movie is the human characters. I love the original Transformers movies from the 80s. I haven't seen it in a long time. And I probably should watch it. Despite the fact that I love giant robots and I love, you know, kaijus and stuff like that, I never really get into things that are exclusively about them. Like, I love giant robots. I really do. But it's a lot to get me to sit down and watch like Transformers. You know, it's a lot to get me to sit down and watch Gundam. You know, it's for some reason, as much as I love like giant robots and stuff like that, I cannot watch, you know, watch that crap. I can't. I want to badly, but I can't. See, WG Phil says, the best thing about the Sonic movie is that they didn't slam the fans as ists and phobes and change Sonic's look. Yeah, I heard that they changed how the character looked. Because I saw the original CGI design of Sonic. And I saw that people were very upset with it. And so they took the time to fix it. And I was like, that was much appreciated, you know. He looked a lot more like Sonic, and that was so much better, you know. But for some reason, it did bother a bunch of other people. But the fact of the matter is, they wanted. I don't know who made this. Who made the movie? I don't know what studio made the movie, but they wanted them to lose money. Apparently, you know, you have to sacrifice on the altar of wokeness. You know, they already had like weird stuff in it. Like they live in. I think they were living in Montana, and somehow Tom has a black wife. Like there's probably like two black people in all of Montana, and Tom knows both of them. You know? And then Tom's sister-in-law has a child with no father, and never mentioned what the father of her child was. So, you know, that was weird, wasn't it? Did I ever play any Sonic games? I played most of the Sonic games. I played all of the ones that were on Genesis. Sonic 1 through Sonic and Knuckles is Sonic 3, right? Because I think there was Sonic 3, then Sonic and Knuckles, I believe. But Sonic 2, of course, is my favorite. I think it was most people's favorite. I'm going to play some of the ones that were on, like Sonic. I think it was it? I don't want to say the Dreamcast. I know I played the Dreamcast. I never played any of the Nintendo Sonic games. Since the Sonic Sega was bought by Nintendo, I never played any of the Sonic games from that. I never read any of the Sonic comic books either. I do have them. Like I have like a free comic book day of the Sonic comics. I have that, but I don't really follow the Sonic comic book series. I don't really follow the cartoon series. I watched the ones when I was a kid. I think it was on Fox Kids. So I watched that. But I haven't seen it in 20 some odd years, since the 90s when they used to come on with Pokemon. So I'm not waist deep in the Sonic franchise, but there is still enough of this for me to recognize the character and to recognize what the character is about. And the changes didn't bother me. Like the fact that Dr. Robotnik wasn't, you know, kidnapping small animals and experimenting on them. I was like, okay, well, we can wait for that. You know, like we could do that in some other movie. So they gave us a good reason why Sonic was in the human world for the second movie. The first one was kind of weak. He was just trying to escape. You know, there was no legitimate reason why he was in the human world. He was just one of the many places he could have gone. But they showed us his life there, you know, and I liked that. You know, I generally speaking liked the movie. The characters were likable. I didn't hate Tom. I didn't hate Tom's wife. I didn't really care for the sister-in-law, but whatever. She really got on my nerves in the second movie. She didn't bother me that much in the first one. But the games were fun, you know. I was back when I used to actually like games that were fast. Now I'm just kind of like, man, that little dude moves too fast for me. I'll end up with the spikes in the ass. But yeah, I play Sonic games. WG Phil says, but the CGI studio shut down 3 years ago. So Paramount made the movie and now the studio is gone. Then how did they make the movie that came out? I think Sonic 2 came out this year, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that black woman really ate up so much screen time in Sonic 2. And I was like, my God, why is there so much of her? Her character arc wasn't even that interesting. It was just she was going to marry a guy. And then the guy ends up being a Fed. And her entire life, the entirety of their relationship and everything was a sham. It was all just an investigation to get closer to Sonic. And I was kind of like, oh God, we didn't need this. We don't need this. We really didn't need this. Dr. Robotnik was able to track Sonic pretty easily, you know. And I get that the government didn't have access to him anymore because they thought he was dead. But it literally didn't make any sense to have this really long program where this guy has to marry this single mother. You know, I'm just kind of like, God, this is awful. Ooh, if it wasn't for that part, this movie would be pretty decent. Alto Johnson, always feel Knuckles was misused in every Sonic media. Well, it's always been a situation of what does his character really represent? What is his relationship to Sonic? You know, and they go about defining that thing differently, but one of the things that's pretty steady is that he's a friendly rival. He's the Vegeta to Sonic's Goku, I guess you could say. That's always sort of been the thing. So I guess as long as they keep that part, they're doing okay. I don't think they really flesh Knuckles out that well here, as much as they utilized him as a vehicle to really just get Robotnik back into the battle. And then, of course, at the end, he had nothing to do with the with the emerald. Well, I guess he did, because he ended up punching Robotnik and getting the emerald out of him. So I guess he did help. But I was kind of like, okay, so I guess what WG Phil is saying is that the studio that made Sonic is the one that did the redesign, and the new studio that's apparently doing the movies now just kept the design that they've used, which is the right decision. You know, why use the other one? The other one was ugly, and it didn't look shit like Sonic, and it pissed people off. So it seemed like it was the right decision to me to go with the Sonic that they have now. Seemed to be a smart business, if you ask me. Now, the reason why the reason why I watched those movies is I wanted to talk about the evil genius. And the evil genius is one of those things where we have these conversations, and it was about why is the evil genius a trope? Why is it a thing? You know? And when you look at both of these movies, or all of these movies combined, you get Dr. Robotnik. Dr. Robotnik gives you the idea that he's an absolute elitist. You know, he always talks about his accomplishments, how he accomplished more in the first 8 years of his life than Tom has ever did, period, up to this point. And you get the idea that he's very prideful. He's also very cocky, very arrogant, very abusive. He's a bully. Megamind is similar. You know, Robotnik has weird behaviors. Like, he does robot talk. Like, I don't know if you guys seen Grandma's Boy, but there is that JP character in Grandma's Boy who does the robot talk. Sit on my face. It's very weird. It's very off-putting, too. So Jim Carrey just kind of adapted that to Robotnik, where sometimes he goes, and you're like, what? But it's part of that quirkiness. And adding those quirks to the character shows you that why they would be considered an outcast, why they would be considered weird to other people, right? Why they would be considered somebody that nobody wants around. And all right, so when we think about it from a psychological perspective, like in the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, we look at the concept of the magician. So the magician is the master of technology. It doesn't literally mean wizard. It also means the evil genius, the scientist. And one of the things that you learn from the scientists is that these are people. And if you look at all of the evil geniuses that you've ever known, like Dr. Doom, JP from Grandma's Boy, Robotnik, Megamind, whatever, they're always more interested in things than people, which is almost what they say about men in general. So when Neil deGrasse Tyson is like, oh, why are all of the scientists always the evil guys? It's because they have no interest in people. They only have interest in people in so much that they can experiment on people, right? They only have interest in people so much as the people can be part of whatever it is that they're doing, their own personal goals. You know, a scientist's ambitions is not necessarily to make the life of the average person better. You know, not necessarily. Most of the time it's for recognition. Most of the time it's for pride. You know, their own personal achievements. And somebody mentioned earlier about funding. Well, that comes from your achievements. Scientists will work their entire life off government grants and different programs and stuff like this, and never legitimately make their own money. You know, they never legitimately really make that money back. Very, very few scientists do. And some of them, when they get lucky, you know, get those rewards and they become multimillionaires, multi-billionaires, or whatever the hell. But generally speaking, they use human beings as lab rats. So other people typically see them as outsiders. They're socially awkward because they focus more on things than people. They're in psychology, they call it the observer. So a scientist, their job is to observe the natural world and to find out how to change or shift the natural world to make human life better. That's the positive. That's what Neil deGrasse Tyson is talking about. Like, hey, when a guy created air conditioning, he was a scientist. You know, he wasn't doing it to try to hurt anybody. It's like air conditioning, refrigeration, those kinds of things has really helped humanity. But it's also led us to thinking that we can freeze people and, you know, create cryo prisons. You know, like Demolition Man. You know, we could put people in cryostasis, like, you know, Mr. Freeze. Because we've learned about refrigeration and we've learned about how to manipulate cold air, you know, or to create cold, you know. So that's what scientists are all about. But they're often very ambitious, very cutthroat, detached. And that's always going to be an issue when we have the magician, the wizards, as I call them. They're usually very detached from humanity. This is why when you get the occasional hero genius, they're typically very connected to society, like Tony Stark, right? So Tony Stark is he's a billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, socialite, whatever, right? He doesn't just live in his lab. There is moments where he lives in his lab, but then there's moments where he wants to go out and party and get drunk and hang out and hook up with supermodels. And then people are like, okay, he's a normal guy. You know, he's fairly normal. There's that part of him, the work part, where for Tony Stark building these machines and everything, it's just fun stuff that he does. He creates cool shit. That's it. That's life for him. He creates cool shit. And then he goes out, parties, and hooks up with hot chicks. Then you got Reed Richards, who spends most of his life in a lab. He kind of ignores his family. You know, his wife's always flirting with like Namor or Black Panther or something like that because he's never around. And his whole life is in the lab usually. And being detached, you know, being isolated, that creates a situation where people don't know you and they feel like there's something weird about you because you're so interested in these things. And then we only see you when you want to use us for something. And that's really where the evil genius comes from, because it's almost the same every time. The evil genius has no use for humanity until they want to use humans as a lab experiment. You know, Lex Luthor is another one. You know, can create all of these incredible machines. He's a very brilliant guy, very, very low on social bonding, very high on ego. That's typically how, you know, if you write a good magician character, like a good magic-based villain, that's kind of how it would be. Someone who's very studious, somebody who is very detached from their society. I haven't read Harry Potter, but that's what it sounds like, you know, Voldemort was, you know? Because I know that J.K. Rowling basically just played with the tropes. She didn't really reinvent anything as much as she just kind of accentuated things. And that's typically what good writers do, is They find a stereotype or whatever, and they just play with it, and they create a new angle on it, put their own little spin on it. But you'll very rarely see a heroic character that doesn't have good social skills. You know, social skills are almost always necessary for heroic characters. Um, some will have better social skills than others. Like Conan the Barbarian, he's not a evil genius or anything like that. He's always been positioned as more clever than high intelligent. But he has decent social skills. Conan's the kind of guy who will go to the pub, drink and party and carouse with whores. Then he'll go out and rob people and murder bandits and stuff like that. But he, generally speaking, is visible. People get to know him. He talks to them. They talk to him. Even if they don't like him, he's visible. A lot of the evil genius characters are people that are mysterious. Sometimes they even go as far as to cover their face, like, Doctor Doom. Or, they'll be like, oh shit, it was right on the tip of my tongue, but it was a villain character. It's like I think it was an old cartoon where you couldn't really tell what he looked like or where he was because he was constantly moving around and always wearing a mask or a helmet or something like that. But we just talked about Inuyasha. Naraku was perfect. Naraku had no social bonds whatsoever. He didn't have a friend in the world. He even created incarnations of himself that hated him. But he was a genius, essentially. He was highly intelligent, able to scheme the way that Naraku was scheming, the constant observations, knowing the people that he was dealing with inside and out, from who they loved to what they ate to where they were at any given time to where they were going. And if he didn't know that, he knew how to manipulate them to get them where he wanted them. Those kinds of characters are scary to people. Somebody who's always watching, but you never actually see them do anything. And then when they actually do something, it's completely outside of the parameters of your culture. And generally speaking, that's also one of the things that makes an evil genius evil. Is an evil genius always brings forth ideas that challenge your culture, right? For instance, Neil deGrasse Tyson was one of the guys who kind of created this concept in my head. He talks about the difference, the relationship between science and religion, right? And he did an interview around the time that Cosmos was about to start, the TV show that he does. And in that interview, he was talking about religion. And he says that he never initiates the conversation about religion or whatever. Of course, he says there's no evidence for God or anything like that. And he said the only way that science and religion can coexist has been when the religious back down in the face of science. Well, that's offensive to people who are religious, right? So they're going to see him, and I looked this up because I tried to find the exact quote because he said this on the Joe Rogan podcast, but it was several years ago. That why does the scientist, why does the genius always have to be evil? Because he's an astrophysicist. So he wants them to be the good guys sometimes. And I get that. But then when you say religion should back down to science as you try to figure out the world, not unsure of anything, capable of falling for anything, because now Neil deGrasse Tyson believes that a woman can be a man and a man can be a woman. Science went out the window at some point, right? But you're challenging your society. That's the creative portion of what scientists and magicians do. They're highly creative people. That's why it kind of blends very well with what we call the artist. But the creativity, it challenges your society. It dares your society. It changes your society. How many of you have ever heard of the Luddites? Hands up if anybody have ever heard of a Luddite. I'm not going to give you too much time. I should have brought some water up here. God damn, I didn't bring no water. Because my mouth getting kind of dry now. But Luddites were not fans of technology. They were smart enough to know that certain technologies made human labor completely and totally irrelevant. So when you look at high unemployment in today, modern world, 2022, automation is one of the reasons why our unemployment is so high, especially in factories. Human labor has been replaced by machines. Well, a scientist created those machines. A scientist created those machines, put all of those people out of work without thinking about what they could be doing now. Right? So now people hate machines. They hate automation. You know, it's unfair. It's not right. It's going to put us out of a job. They don't want those self-serve kiosks in Walmart. The self-serve kiosk in McDonald's. Oh, it's evil. It's horrible. Why would you do that? Those were the creation of engineers and scientists and people like that. The evil genius does not think about what they do and how it affects humanity. Or they do think about what it does and how it affects humanity. But generally speaking, they think what they're thinking about matters more. For instance, in getting rid of traditional labor, the idea would be that, well, now we can make cheaper products because they're being made by machines and not people. Well, for starters, that's not true because inflation happened anyway, because we ended up having to increase the amount of people who are on unemployment and on welfare and stuff like that. So now we're spending more money than ever, which was a mistake. But it's good for the corporations because now they can charge $2 for a Big Mac or whatever and not have to pay anybody to stay at the cash register. Force everybody to pay on the card, so nobody can handle any cash, or you have to use cash. You can just slide it into that machine and yada, yada, yada. But then you have the opposite. You could turn somebody's bank account off without going anywhere near a bank. You could rob people. You know, some people are very smart. Some people are very clever. They can rob you just by getting your bank account information. They can steal it off of a computer or something like that. They steal it off your cell phone. That's generally what people think about the evil genius, is that they can do all of these things from the shadows. They can disrupt your society with their creativity. They already are not interested in people. They don't care about people. They care about things. Oh, wouldn't it be great if we could automate all of these jobs? Wouldn't it be great? And then, you know, they talk shit about all the people who lost their jobs. And it's really unfortunate, but there's a video, I think it's Stephen Michael Davis. I think you guys should be interested in that, where he talks about the myth of manufacturing, or the mythology of manufacturing, or whatever. And he's talking about it from a economic position, and it's almost purely economics. But here's the thing: when you're an economics guy, you know, that's scientists. You're a scientist. What you're doing, you're cooking up things in a laboratory, not taking into account the human element. You're detached from everybody else. You're not thinking about everybody else and what you're doing is going to affect them, and then you go and did it, and you ruin their lives. So now they hate you. And I'm not saying him specifically. He's just a political commentator. But he talks about it like it's a positive, which is a good thing. I do believe that automation is a good thing. But the people who made those decisions divorced from real life people who needed those jobs. Right? So it's no different than the guys who made the atom bomb. You know, you drop the atom bomb on Hiroshima or Nagasaki, you didn't really think about the human element. How many human beings were you going to maim or murder or kill when you created this weapon? You just thought it would be an efficient way to end the war. You know, we dropped this bomb, it'll end the war. We didn't think that it was going to do as much damage as it did. Hell, the fucking nuclear bombs was the source of a lot of creativity from Japan. Like, they started creating stuff like Godzilla from the concept of how bad the radiation would be. That it would take a lizard and turn it into a giant lizard. It would make freakish freakish people and stuff like that. We created a lot of the culture of Japan. You know, there's life in Japan before the atom bomb, and then life in Japan after. We changed everything about Japan after the atom bomb, right? But it was created in a laboratory by guys who were not thinking about what the reaction to human beings it was going to have. So that's why you have the evil genius. You know, they typically have this sort of elitist, know-it-all sense of what I'm doing is going to help humanity or help my country or help my people. Everybody else be damned. I'm going to be known as the guy who changed the world, changed our reality, but I also want to challenge the culture because I'm going to force them to accept my way of thinking. And if my way of thinking challenges your generally accepted view of how the world comes across, well then too bad. We have another one right now with the to try to get a little bit salacious here with the dildos in the classroom. How many of you heard of that? You probably heard of like the Chris Rufo videos or Project Veritas videos where they're talking about the dildos being shown to college students in classrooms. Well, that stuff is coming up by bureaucrats and people who are fairly smart, but it's being pushed, and the parents aren't giving their consent for this. Nobody's giving their consent for this crap. They're just doing it because they know best. They think they know best. They're smarter than you. I know best. I'm a bureaucrat that works in an office somewhere. I can read data. This is what my data says. Be damned that you don't want your children around butt plugs and dildos. That be damned. I'm a genius. I'm smart. This is what my data set says. Oh, you're being emotional. You think that kids aren't going to know about dildos at 14, 15 years old? You're being irrational. That's the evil genius talking. That's the magician talking. Challenging your cultural norm of not sexualizing children by bringing dildos and butt plugs into the classroom. They do it anyway because they know best. They're not adhering to societal norms. They know best. I already figured this part out. You're just catching up. Here, let me educate you on why you're wrong. Not, I want to hear what you have to say. You're istophobe if you say I'm wrong. You just an ignorant istophobe. That's the problem. I'm the genius. I know better. I know the literature. I know the data. I can nothing bad will happen because I said so. You're just an istophobe, ignorant, not smart guy, right? That's why the genius tends to be so evil all the time. He's always trying to influence the culture with his machinations that came up with while he was isolated away from everybody else. Has no social bonds, no real friendships, no real relationships, no real bonds in the society. And you could tell also, usually they bond with each other, these wizards, these scientist types. They hang out with one another. They don't never really hang out with anybody else. And they're surprised that when they produce an idea or produce a thing, and then it's rejected on pretty practical grounds, because it's going to fuck up our way of life. I'll give you another good example that's not really all that political, but it's old. The automobile, right? When the cars was created, people rejected it. They looked at it and said, I have no use for that. Well, I have a horse-drawn carriage. What do I need this vehicle for? I don't need it. My horse can drag whatever I want. I got to carry, groceries from the store or whatever. The horse can do that. I mean, wipe the hands. You sat up here and put this thing together thinking that you were going to change reality. No, I'm just going to use my old horse-drawn carriage, and I'm okay with that. The same thing right now with the electric cars, right? They're trying to push electric cars on you. You're like, nope, I got a gas car. I don't got to worry about an electric car. What do I need an electric car for? They're like, no, no, no. You need to have an electric car. They're like, I don't need an electric car. I don't want an electric car. Then what happens? The state decides there's going to be electric cars. So we're going to tell GM, Chrysler, and Ford to stop making gas-powered cars. Because the geniuses decided that they were going to change what kind of cars you drive without your permission, without giving you a choice. They did the same thing to the horse-drawn carriage. They dug up and laid down pavement so that people can drive their cars and not have to drive their cars on these bumpy, rocky stone roads. Difference is that pavement is really bad for horses. And they knew that. So they pretty much pushed everybody into to get in a car. Now they're going to push everybody into buying an electric car. And then when it comes time for flying cars, they're going to push people into that too. Because human beings are resistant to change. We're naturally resistant to change. But the evil genius always looking to change things. Always looking to change the status quo. And to do so in a way that is impractical to the average person. So the average person looks at the genius as an evil person. You're playing around with forces you don't understand. You're playing around with my life. It's a good way of, a solid way. And that's why, they're almost always the outsider. You don't really belong to this society, because if you did, you wouldn't try to do the things that you're trying to do here. Like some people, you introduce things into their society, they adapt it pretty quickly. The firearm, guns. Introduce guns to Africa, boy, they adapted. Okay, they was like, oh shit, that's badass. Give me that. You didn't have to trick no Africans into using rifles, right? Better than spears and bows and arrows, right? But you do have to force them into other things, so you do. Even if it's better for them in the long run, you have to force them into it. So that's why you have the evil genius being so evil. It's an interesting piece of business for your society to have evil geniuses in it. Like we have people in our society that are, Bill Gates is an evil genius, right? This guy who created, Microsoft, guy's fucking brilliant. And now he's going to apply that brain onto medicine. Force you to take vaccinations that you don't want to take. Oh, you'll be okay. You're going to eat the bugs. You're going to live in the pod. It's going to be better for you. Because he knows better. He knows about your life better than you do. So that's what the evil genius is all about. All right. Oof. I don't know where I am on. Let's see. We got 1 hour, 28 minutes. I'm actually had gotten a lot done. We're actually moving on a nice clip here. I might be able to end this stream at 10 o'clock. I did the 3 movies already. What else did I have on my agenda? I don't remember what my agenda was. But I did the 3 movies already. I guess it's time to do... Okay, I guess I could do Bleach and Ben10 now. How many of you are still here, Bleach? Tien Pyro. He says he's been watching Bleach lately. Well, good job. Because I've been watching Bleach too. Like I said before, I stopped taking notes on Bleach. Because it feels like I'm stuck in an endless fight scene. It's just like constant fighting. I'm not sure if I even remember what they were fighting about at this point. It's pretty weird to feel that way. Because I'm a big fan of battle manga and battle anime. But I never had a battle go on so long. I mean, it's been like 10 episodes straight of these battles. And I lost count of the Espada and the Arrancar. I don't even know what the fuck going on anymore. All I know is the last episode I watched, there was a Hollow, I believe her name was Holly Bell or something like that. She got killed by Aizen. He destroyed her because he didn't particularly like her performance in battle. so he killed her off. Um, that was pretty badass. And then they showed us the backstory to that character, which is a Bleach specialty now. You'll kill a character, then show us the backstory, or show us the backstory before the character dies. Okay, whatever. I did like that. I was about to call them children. The people who were hassling Ichigo about his Arankar powers, his hollow powers rather, were the people who are Soul Reapers with Aizen 100 years ago. I thought that was very cool. They had been escaped and living on the human world, and they were trying to train Ichigo. He was being hard-headed, and I don't think he ever finished that training either. He trained with them for a little bit before he ran off to try to save Orihime. But I thought it was very cool that they came back, and now they're helping to fight, the invaders or whatever. It's been fun. It's a lot of characters to keep track of. It really is. Man, it's a lot of characters to keep track of. They don't just introduce characters one at a time. It's usually like large batches of characters they just dump on you at once. And you're trying to figure out what these characters do, why they exist, whose side are they on, where they come from. And it seems like I see different characters because it doesn't stick with one battle. It just constantly jumps back and forth. Like the number one, Espada, I think, the guy who was fighting the dude in the flowered shirt. I think his name is Shinji. He one of the captains of the 13 court guard squads. I can't remember his fucking name. Somebody's going to correct me in a minute and tell me what his name is. But he was fighting the number one ranked Espada or whatever. And then we went away from that to Baragon, the king of Hueco Mundo. And he was fighting, 2 or 3 of the Soul Reapers with hollow powers living on Earth. And then after he got destroyed, it kind of went back to the big boobed Espada with her 3 underlings. They created this gigantic monster by forming all of their left arms together. Then the king not the king, but the head captain of the Soul Society killed that thing, then killed all of them. It was a lot happening. All right, it was a lot happening. And I was just asking the question, like, okay, Upiora is dead now. Is Orihime still kidnapped or not? Like, I don't understand. Aizen is not there where she is. Is she still kidnapped? Like, technically, if your kidnappers are gone and you can move around freely and do whatever you want, are you still kidnapped? Like, I don't understand how that works. Like, is she legitimately still kidnapped, or can we say that part of the story is over and now we've entered into a new part where Aizen and his team are going to destroy Karakuta Town? Which is what we seem like what has happened is we've transitioned from save Orihime to, oh no, we have to protect this town from Aizen and all these guys who are looking to invade. And I'm okay with that transition. I'm just saying that it happened pretty quickly, and it just kind of like stacked on top of each other, without one fully ending and the other one fully taken back over. It just felt like one long fight. I give Kubo credit for his character designs. A lot of those Espada are very well designed. They look very cool. Give him a lot of credit for the power sets. A lot of the power sets are pretty dope. Of course, he has never shot on the boobs. Almost every female character, except for like maybe 3 or 4 of them, have gigantic breasts. And you're just kind of like, this guy really likes titties. And, like he knows he's drawing a shonen. So he definitely didn't spare the titties at all. So it was great. So Bleach it's okay. I'm getting through it a little at a time. I think I said I was on episode 286 or 287, which was the Holly Bell episode where she got recruited by Aizen and then she died I think in the next episode after that, or she got killed in the episode before that, one of the two. And now Aizen is pulling out of this town. He's telling everybody, look, we've had enough of this. He's unhappy with the Arankar and with everybody else and their performance, and he doesn't want anything to do with them anymore. So, what do you guys think about Bleach? Did you guys watch it? Oh, jeez. I'm tired, boss. All right. Let's see. I guess we got to go into Ben 10. You know, Ben 10, I legit probably only watched like 3 episodes this whole week. I went through the episodes of, I think I'm only on episode like 15 or 16 of Ben 10. You know, we've had the Kevin 11 situation where Kevin and Ben were fighting in like this gladiatorial arena. They got kidnapped by aliens and they were fighting in this arena or whatever. And, you know, so it's interesting, you know, but a lot of this stuff was just kind of like, it's a drag. The last episode I watched was the episode where Ben was recruited to a superhero team. And then he joined the team for a little while before he decided he was going to stick with his family. And that was going to be his team. And I was kind of like, yay, that was very nice. And I didn't go back to it. I think that's when I started watching movies. Oh, man. I think I need to diversify, you know. I think I need to diversify quite a bit. Because it was easy for me to watch Naruto and Inuyasha, because those shows were just fun to watch, and even if they were doing blue sky stuff and, you know, it dragged a little bit, I was still having fun with the characters. Bleach is just so many characters, you know, and they all just dumped on you at one time, and the fights don't seem to ever end, and Ben 10 just seems like it's just never going anywhere. You know, it's like I have almost no progress on that show. It's like I watched like 2 or 3 episodes straight, and it felt like nothing happened. You know, I thought in season 2 things would pick up a little bit more. I were wrong. You know, some people told me, "Oh yeah, things are going to pick up when Vilgax shows up." Like, all right, that was 4 episodes ago. Now it's just kind of like still, you know, Ben with this watch, and people trying to take the watch from him, or I think Kevin's like a permanent freak now. You know, I think he's just like got a tail and bits and pieces of all of Ben's powers, you know. But I don't feel like I made any sort of headway on that show. And I don't even know how long the show is, if we're being honest. I'm struggling to get through Ben 10. But I'm pretty sure I've already said it, and I think I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it now. I'm actually going to find a way to watch Doctor Who and Star Trek next year. So I'm going to, I don't know. I think I'm going to start with Star Trek, the original series. I don't know where I can watch it. I don't know if it's on Peacock. I don't know what. I think there was some Star Trek that was on NBC, but I don't know which one it was. But I'm going to find some kind of service where I can watch all of the Star Trek, original Star Trek series. And I'm going to start watching that on the 1st of January. So we're going to do Star Trek, and we're probably going to do Doctor Who. I don't know where I'm going to start on Doctor Who. We can't start at the very beginning. I don't know where I would start. Maybe, see, Deep Space Nine is so good. I've already watched Deep Space Nine. I really want to watch Deep Space Nine again. But I watched Deep Space Nine last year, all the way through. I want to watch it again. I watched Voyager all the way through too. But I have not watched the original Star Trek all the way through. I have not watched New Generation all the way through. I want to watch those 2, then watch Deep Space Nine and Voyager again. And then I'm going to stop right there. Paramount has all Star Trek. Do I want to pay for that? No, I don't. I don't really. I'm going to have to find a bootleg site. Sorry. I love Star Trek. I really do. My dad he made me a Trekkie, man. My dad he was the evil genius of the house. He was always detached. He'd be in his room watching science fiction shows. His favorite was Star Trek. He never got into Star Wars, but he loved Star Trek. And when on the odd occasion he would let me in that room, we would watch Star Trek. It would always be Next Generation. But mostly he wanted to watch it by himself because I asked too many questions. I was too curious as a kid. I got into too much stuff, touched too much. But yeah, I want to watch the original. Then I want to watch Next Generation. Then I want to watch Deep Space Nine and Voyager. But Deep Space Nine is so fucking good. And I understand why people say it's the best one. Because Gul Dukat is one of my favorite villains in all of fiction. He's so good. It's so well written. Gul Dukat rules. WG Phil asked me a question. See, will you do a stream of how to write a novel or the fundamentals? Well, I could, Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be that difficult, Have to see, sometimes when you look at other novelists, I don't want to get too much into it. They want to just teach you the rules and then they say you learn the rules and then learn how to break them. I say fuck it, just do your thing. But there are some fundamentals that you need to have. There's definitely some fundamentals you need to work on. But maybe I'll do that some other time. Maybe when I got some downtime, I'll sketch out how I do it. Because I know other people who are writers. They like to have a different process. I'll teach you guys how I do it one day, and maybe I'll share some of my writings on here for one of these pop culture streams. I should watch Batman the animated series instead. Well, I've been considering it. I've been thinking about going to Batman the animated series. And I told the people I would watch Ben 10, so I'm trying. I'm trying to get through it. Now, I know people say, well, it doesn't really pick up until he grows up. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm going to get there, dog. It's hard for me to get there. Like, even when Samurai Jack, which is the exact same way, even when I had a hard time getting through Samurai Jack sometimes, because some of those episodes were kind of whack, I still have fun just watching the episodes. I'm not even really having fun watching Ben 10, man. Here's the thing about Pluto TV. I can't really decide what episodes I want to watch and when, right? Like, I can go to the Star Trek channel, but I just have to watch whatever it is that they play, right? I can't watch whatever I want. Like, I can't start it from the beginning or anything. So it's kind of like I'm peeking in. But I want to be able to watch the episodes in order. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to have to find some kind of streaming service in order to do that. You made me actually open up Pluto TV. Oh, which begs the question. Yes, I forgot about this. Thursday. Unless there's some big news that pops up during the week that we have to talk about on Thursday, what do you guys think about doing a watch along for our wrestling stream and doing a watch along of either a WWE or TNA pay-per-view or maybe WCW? I'm going to put out a poll, put wrestling company, WWE, WCW, ECW because it's on the network, or TNA, but it has to be on YouTube. It has to be a pay-per-view that's a TNA pay-per-view that's on YouTube. And because I don't record on the same device that I use to make these videos, I can watch it on my phone. And we could just do a watch along, at 8 o'clock on Thursday. I know I said we'd probably do it for Christmas, which would be Saturday. Well, no, it would be Sunday night. But I got to work Saturday and Sunday. I'm probably going to be very tired. But I don't have to work on Friday. So I can probably sit through a 3-hour pay-per-view with you guys. And it'd be a lot easier. Because even though I did have to work earlier that day, I don't have to work the next day. Well, I still don't have to work Monday either. So what the fuck? Wouldn't be that much of a difference. But it wouldn't interfere with our pop culture stream. It would just be added on to our wrestling stream. And to be quite honest, we could do the watch along and the the news and notes and little stuff like that if you guys wanted to. So I'm going to basically just give you the option of doing a watch along Saturday if you guys can do it. And I know some people are listening to this on YouTube and they're listening to it on their phone and they're not going to be around their computer. So you're not going to be able to use both. But for some people, they're going to be able to have both. And it might be nice even to, for somebody to go back and say, well, I couldn't watch it live with you guys, but maybe you can catch it on the replay. Maybe when you do have a day off and you got 2 or 3 hours, you could play it. So I'm thinking about that. Because I watched the TNA pay-per-view today. Victory Road 2009. Main event was Kurt Angle versus Mick Foley. Match I'm pretty sure I knew that it happened. But wasn't nothing like watching it. I can tell you that much. And they also had Sting versus Samoa Joe. When they showed that Samoa Joe was one of Taz's minions. What a hilarious pay-per-view. It's a main event Mafia pay-per-view. So it was fun, of course. AJ Styles versus Kevin Nash. Man, I wish I had waited to watch that show and talked about it with you guys, though. But I'm going to give you the option. Before I go to sleep tonight, I'm going to put up a poll. Yeah, we're going to do the poll on which show. We're going to do a poll on which company first. And probably keep that up for a day or two. And then we're going to do which event. I'm probably going to pick a December event. An event that's probably close to the holiday season. So, I think you guys might like, the Armageddon Hell in a Cell, maybe one of the options. I don't know what the December pay-per-view for TNA would be. What is it? I think it would be Starrcade for WCW would be December pay-per-view. For ECW, I don't know what their December pay-per-view was called. I forgot. I honestly forgot. What was it? Massacre on 34th Street or something like that, I think it was called. But I want to let you guys pick the company first. And then once we pick the company, we can go into what event. And maybe when you pick the company, you can suggest an event. And it don't have to be a December event. It could be any event. So you want to watch WrestleMania 17 or whatever, just put it in the comment section. If it gets a lot of likes, we'll utilize that in the poll. And we'll just do that until Thursday. And then Thursday, whatever has the most votes, we'll just pop that on the network. And at, what was that? Probably like 9 o'clock, we'll start the show. And we'll do news and notes while we do the watch along. Of course, I'd have to watch it on mute so it wouldn't get any copyright strikes in terms of music or anything like that. But it ought to be fun. And I think that might be fun. Zay Kid says, Sony makes Spider-Man Universe about Hypno Hustler movie. Well, they're doing the Sinister Six, and they're going to use Hypno Hustler because they want to put Danny Glover in a movie. Not Danny Glover. Fuck it. Donald Glover. Ain't that his name? Childish Gambino. I don't know what the fuck he calls himself. But they just want to put him in a movie. Fucking Hypno Hustler is nobody. It's a character nobody's thought of in forever. But they just want to put him in a movie. That Across the Spider-Verse thing, that ought to be interesting, huh? Where you got Misty Knight as Spider-Man. Even though I know it's supposed to be Spider-Woman and Jessica Drew. They just can't help themselves. It's so silly. It's so silly. It was silly. Yeah, I thought so too, but they said that they're going to put, I think he was the guy they wanted to play Hypno Hustler too in that Sinister Six joint. Unless they're going to pick somebody else. But when I saw the news, and I wasn't paying that close attention, it was next to his picture. So it got me thinking that people are going to use Donald Glover as a Hypno Hustler. And not a big fan of that idea, to be quite honest. I'm not going to hold you up. All right. I think I've talked about From the Red Fog before as a manga that I suggested everybody read. But I don't think I've ever showed you guys like the inside of the book. So I want to try to show you the inside of the book right now and tell you guys the story of why you guys should probably be picking this up. It's 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 kind of difficult to get your hands on because it's not a widely circulated series. But here's what the first book looks like. From the Red Fog. So far, there's 3 volumes out. I have all 3. I have only read 1 and 2 so far because I have a backlog of manga I haven't read yet. So I'm going to give you guys a general idea of what this is, but this is very good. This character's name is Rwanda. Okay, so you learn from right here, Rwanda grows up in almost Victorian England. So, and his mother is a serial killer. That's his mom right there. And you get that she is very violent and very abusive. And here you see her she says, I abhor younglings. She calls him a youngling. But he is highly abused. I mean, he's just a real maladaptive kid. He's completely fucked in the head. You know? And I'm trying to find some really cool panels to show you. But this is the only time his mom really liked him. Is when he did some horrible, evil shit. Like murdering his nannies. So, because he lived in her basement, he was basically forced to live in the basement. He was raised by nannies. And he would murder the fucking nannies. And he would also used to help his mom chop up the bodies. And it's a frightening, really fucked up thing. So his mom is, not to give too much away, but his mom is killed. So now he has to go off on his own. And what you see is a series of unfortunate events, such as Rwanda he's now a street urchin, and he's begging for change. And he gets picked up by a guy, and some unfortunate business actually happens to him. But he ends up getting his revenge. Fork right through the fucking eye. It's great. But eventually he ends up in an orphanage where he does very bad things to children for no apparent fucking reason because he's a psycho. And then he it goes to this. You know, this is his his mind state. Murder, the only thing that makes me feel alive. Rwanda is fucked. He's only I think the character is 15 or 16 or something like that. He's just mentally dead inside. And you just watch this kid devolve into fucking madness. But he's already crazy. Like, he was crazy when you meet him. But you just see how horrible the stuff he does. But this is why I really want people to read this book. This is when the other kids start to figure out that Rwanda is killing them. And they're looking, and this one of these kids is like, look, he's killing us, man. And he's going to kill everybody. And there's this one adult. And this one adult is named Will. And Will is the guy who invited him to come into the orphanage. So Will has to take responsibility for how horrible Rwanda has been to all the other children. He's murdered the other kids. I know I'm spoiling too much, but I really want you to watch it, to read this. And this scene is what won me over with this entire book. And Will says that no one is born wicked into this world. It was the rest of us who made you a child into what you are. And you see that up here, he's got a knife, which is his favorite weapon of choice. Rwanda, he likes to stab people, and as he's trying to kill Will grasps him and basically begs him to change his ways. That is the number one thing about this book, is that Rwanda is in a situation where that kind of stuff starts to happen to him. At first, you see that he hates all adults because he sees how all adults are essentially abusive. They're like his mom. They beat him up. They're trying to molest him. They're trying to rape him. All kinds of terrible, horrible things. And then he falls in with some adults that actually care. And then he fucks it up because he's, generally speaking, a psychopath. But then he kind of is forced to live on his own, make a living for himself. And he ends up working for a guy named Midwinter. And this brings us to the second book. And he ends up falling into this sort of assassin's guild, where he's going to be hired to kill people. And now we see that once again Rwanda is in a fucked up situation. Because let me see if I can find that scene I want to show you guys. Alright, so Rwanda tries to do something fucked up. I'm not going to spoil what he's trying to do. But he goes to his boss, Midwinter, and tell Midwinter, hey, yeah, I did try to do this thing. And you see this conversation. Midwinter is this guy right here. He says, this organization and you, in turn, belong to me. He's talking to Rwanda. He says, your days of doing whatever you please are now over. So Rwanda's a bit of an asshole. He says, no, thank you. I'll decide what I do. And Midwinter is like, no, you will not. You will not do what you want, and he puts him in cuffs. He shackles him to the floor, and he called him chattel. So you see how, despite how crazy Rwanda is, there are people out there who are in some ways just as bad, and in other ways actually worse. And Midwinter is one of those people that is actually worse. He refers to him as an object. He says objects do not talk back to people. What this organization demands of you is the loyalty of a canine, not the spirit of a feline. He says that his mama spoiled him rotten. And now we learn at this point that Rwanda is now looking for his mom, because he thinks his mom is still alive. And all we know is that his mom is dead. But for some reason, he thinks she's still alive. And then you can see Midwinter put his boot on his neck. So, From the Red Fog is fucking awesome, right? It is legitimately a tremendous manga series. You saw the art. It's not the greatest art in the world. I definitely seen art in other books that are better. But generally speaking, from a story's perspective, and the author has to write in the first book that Rwanda is a bad person, so he shouldn't be, it says it down here that murder is a crime and Rwanda is a fictional character. Good boys and girls shouldn't view him as a role model. So, but as far as I know, From the Red Fog is not popular enough to get an anime, at least not yet. Hell's Paradise will be getting an anime, but I want to be able to read all of it first before it does. But this is very good, and I want people to really get into this. It's very good. The second joint I want to talk about is Momo the Blood Taker. I think I talked about this one before, and I've even showed the insides of this one before. But it's a new volume is out. And I want to be able to show you guys a little bit of that, because I want people to get into this one too. But this one's a little, again, it makes me queasy a little bit because of what the decisions the author decided to make when it comes to this character wearing lingerie while she looks like a fucking child. But for people who didn't see it before, this is the kind of shit we're dealing with. You know, vampires, man. Look at that thing. Look at that art. There's mouths, 2 rows of teeth, hands inside the mouth. That's fucking frightening, bro. This page alone made me buy this book. This series is essentially about this guy. His name is Keigo, Mikokami Keigo or whatever. He's hunting vampires because the vampires murdered his fiancée. That's who this was. And he spends the bulk of his adult life from that point hunting vampires. And he ends up in the thrall of the vampire with 2 faces. This is the vampire with 2 faces. Look at that shit. One of his eyes has a mouth on it. That's fucking nutty, bro. This dude is a badass. That's a scary motherfucker, man. Things don't go so well for Keigo once they meet, though. They don't necessarily go too well. But, you see this thing, and this is some frightening shit right here, man. Look at that. That's sick. That's sick. I love this shit. And things don't go too well for Keigo, like I said. But, the story is now he has to try to learn how to live as a vampire. And this second book is basically about that. The first book is mostly about his human life and why he does what he does. This book, of course, sets standards for the vampire society. So now we've gotten him turned into a vampire. And he has to learn the rules of vampire society. So, this second book is not as shocking visually as the first. Like, the first book is very shocking visually with this. This is supposed to be a 10,000-year-old or a 200-year-old character or whatever, but she looks like a little girl. I hate when mangaka do that. It really tricked me because I had no idea that it was going to be that way when I bought it. But whatever. The story is good enough for me to push through it. But this is sort of the Dracula of this universe. His name is Kudrak. And you see he has antlers growing out of his face. It's fucking freaky. Look at that shit. And, you learn it's just... Look at that shit, man. This is awesome. Look at this artwork. He's got fucking 4 eyes on one side of his head and antlers growing out of his face. But it's essentially the female character's father. And she sends him on a mission. And he sends them on that mission to get the vampire with 2 faces or whatever. But it takes them out of the vampire world. I don't want to spoil too much, but they get booted out of vampire society for breaking the rules or whatever. And now they have to live without his blessing. So the mansion that she had and all that kind of stuff is taken away from him. And he has to live on his own. So it takes this little princess and they makes her a pauper. So now she has to try to figure out how to live on her own. And then you start getting stuff like this. This violent shit here. And you get these characters here. Other vampires who are also chasing for the vampire with 2 faces. Because they want to be able to beat her, the girl, to it. This is a very well designed character right here. Morgana. This is a great character design. I thought she was a doll at first, but then I realized she was just wearing a mask. But she looks a lot like a doll, and she doesn't talk that often either. But it's a very good book. It's a vampire book. I get off on vampire stuff, man. It kind of rules. But I just wanted to talk about those manga and get people to really into watching them or reading, looking for them at least. Even if you just have to look at them as on the share sites or whatever. I really want people to kind of look into them and get to know them, because I think they're going to be pretty good in the future. All right, it's 10 o'clock. Apparently nobody's watching anymore, and it's been 2 hours. So I'm going to say my goodbyes before everybody floods back in and tries to keep me another hour. I am probably going to go get some water because my mouth is dry. But I thank everybody for joining me on this live stream. You guys are the best. I do what I can. Hopefully you guys had fun. Even if you're just listening to this on the review. Oh yeah, I probably should show you this just in case. Just for a little bit. Batman Spawn. It is drawn by Greg Capullo. Absolutely beautiful insides. The writing, which is by Todd McFarlane. I wish Todd McFarlane is not a good writer. Okay, he is not. That is not his strong suit. I want to show you some of the inside though, because I know there are some people who are going to be looking at this and saying, "What is this even about?" Somehow they managed to get the Batman and decide that Batman is going to be involved in the modern Spawn series. So despite the fact that the art is beautiful, like, look at this art. Art is gorgeous. This is Spawn. His powers is deformed. That's why his cape is all like flopped like that. Because you know his Spawn's cape usually very lively and bouncing around. But Todd McFarlane decided to do something that was very tongue-in-cheek in terms of creating a relationship between Spawn and Batman. And what he tried to do was create that they were both created on the same day. How was that? Well, June 26th, I think it was supposedly the day that Batman's parents were murdered. But it was also the day that Spawn's wife was murdered. So the idea is that the Court of Owls, the Batman villains, were working together with the Court of Priests, Spawn's villains, and that they were working together to create these dead zones or whatever. It's very confusing. It's very confusing shit. It doesn't make any sense. Todd McFarlane is writing it, so you know it doesn't make any sense. This is a splash page with Spawn and Batman. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. McFarlane's writing really fucked this up, though. I mean, he really botched this one hard. But it features the Court of Owls, which I really just read about. I really just finished reading all of the Court of Owls story. Which actually had a very interesting Mr. Freeze in it. And I don't remember anybody bitching about the Mr. Freeze from the Court of Owls. Because he didn't even know Wanda. Not Wanda, fucking Nora. He didn't even know Nora. But you see that artwork of Spawn right there? It's pretty good. Pretty good artwork. I dropped it. But the story is very poorly written. It's very confusing. And it's really unfortunate because I think the opportunity was there to make something fun. Also, it doesn't really build on the Batman Spawn Frank Miller thing that they had. But whatever. Anyway, Batman Spawn. There that goes. There's no more comics. I didn't buy any more comics. So that was it. I do have the 5th book of Sakamoto Days, just to show them to you guys. I have this. I have not read it yet. I have Candy and Cigarettes, too. I have not read that either. Both of these are in my backlog. I have a hell of a backlog when it comes to manga. I'm still reading Attack on Titan. I love Attack on Titan. It's so good. I just got to the part on Attack on Titan where the female Titan called all of the other Titans to rip her apart and eat her because she had gotten captured. And the genius of it is now that we know that people can turn into Titans, that now they think that there is a spy within the walls that is now working for the Titans. So it's going to be some fun shit, man. And I don't want it spoiled for me. And thank God, as great as Attack on Titan is, and as vociferous as the fan base is, it hasn't been spoiled for me yet. So it's excellent. Like, I love when, you know, fan bases don't spoil things. Like, the Naruto fan base is the only fan base really that I've been a part of so far where they don't hesitate to spoil things. Usually everybody else is, you know, pretty good about not spoiling shit. But I thank everybody again, because this time I'm really about to sign off. I'll talk to you guys later, man. If you're listening to this on replay, thank you for your 2 hours and 13 minutes or whatever of your time. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.